Hello and welcome to the Trading Mindset Podcast. My name's Nilton Fernandez, and on our podcast we look to talk to traders that have educated themselves to successfully trade the markets today. As you know, this can be a tough gig for anyone starting out, but we look to get inside the minds of these successful traders and understand the strategies that they use, the morning rituals or morning routines that they follow, and how they trade upon the economic news. We also have much more.
Hello, and my name is Louise Nonwheeler. I am the co-host of the Trading Mindset Podcast. I am a multi-award-winning clinical hypnotherapist and life coach, and I specialize in working with financial traders on their psychology of trading. In this podcast, we talk to traders about their emotions that they experience, the challenges that they face on a daily basis, and the techniques that they have used that have really helped them to get from where they are to becoming profitable traders.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Trading Mindset Podcast. As ever, I'm your host, Nilton Fernandez, and I'm joined by the lovely co-host, Louise Nonwheeler. Louise, how you doing?
I am wonderful, Nilton. Thank you. How are you doing?
Great. You know, busy day today, so winding down, looking to cook some good food and then get an early night, I think. Yourself?
Well, yeah, pretty much the same. But no, I'm really good, thanks. Just been in the garden all day, enjoying the sunshine that we've got in February. So it's been nice. Thank you.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I mean, we've got rain over here. Today was pretty miserable, but, you know, hopefully tomorrow's going to be a better day.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. So without further ado, really looking forward to introducing our next guest on the show. Our guest has over 20 years experience trading the markets today. He's taught thousands and thousands of students all over the world. He's known all over the world. He holds a very prestigious title when it comes to trading, which is a CMT. For those that don't know what that is, that's a chartered market technician. And my favorite attribute about this guy is he's a diehard Arsenal fan. So please welcome Mr. Brandon Wendell. Brandon, how you doing?
I'm doing just great.
It's really nice to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
Really looking forward to speaking to you today, Brandon. Well, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. So yeah, how's things? What's been happening?
Well, Alba's gone, so I'm talking about Gunners there, but yeah, it's a little disappointing what's going on there. But anyway, back in the markets, you know, things have been kind of exciting, a little bit volatility back in the markets, so a little bit of unpredictability, but then again, a lot of stuff is still predictable. So plodding along as usual and just enjoying the increased volatility for more opportunities.
Sounds great. So you've had a lot of successful trades, or so far, you know, you banking some cash?
Yeah, here and there. Absolutely. I do both swing trading as well as day trading. So I got kind of a mix of everything going in there, but I'm fluid with the markets. Let's put it that way. So whatever the markets tell me to do, that's what I'm going to do. So they go down, I short, they go up, I go long. I kind of anticipate, but I also react to what they're telling me.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of traders, they don't actually see it like that, do they? They don't actually, the fundamental is, you know, whatever the direction the market's trading in, you should trade in that direction. And I think, you know, a lot of the traders tend to try and trade against the trend and often fall short, correct? Or am I just...
No, it's true. I mean, there's a saying, the trend is your friend till the bend in the end. And really, you got to first identify the trend, but you also need to identify when the trend is going to likely reverse so you can take advantage of that as well. And as I mentioned, I can try to predict as much as I want, but ultimately the market is going to tell me when it's right. And I can be wrong. The market's not going to be wrong. As much as I disagree with it, as much as I think it's illogical, it's always going to be right. And we have to let go of our ego, if you will, to just be willing to listen to what the market's telling you.
Yeah, exactly. Before we talk trading, Brandon, let's strip it back. I mean, let's talk about growing up, social life, college. Was you always destined to be a trader? Did you have an active social life, or was you very quiet? Talk to us about it.
I've been a social butterfly all my life. I love people. I love being around people. So that's never been a problem for me. I was never actually interested. Well, I was interested in trading and investing ever since I was in, I think, 10th grade in high school. We had a class called social studies at my high school in Pennsylvania is where I grew up.
Okay.
And in that, we had a stock market game. So every day we would pick our stocks, and the next day we would see how they were doing. And, you know, I knew that it wasn't just random. There had to be some sort of pattern, something I could figure out. And I started doing more research on it. So I've always kind of been interested in the market. I actually kind of fell into this. I joke because I say I'm genetically engineered to do what I do because my father is a retired stockbroker. My mother is a retired school teacher.
Yeah.
So what I do part-time is teach trading, obviously, because I've been genetically engineered to do that. I got the genes of that teacher and the broker, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
So, but no, I didn't actually study to do this. My background and my degrees were in forensic psychology and criminal justice.
Oh, wow.
So I was going a completely different path and just kind of fell into it, and it turned into my passion and my life work.
What was you doing before that, Brandon? I believe you was in the Navy, right?
Well, I was, yeah. I joined the military out of college and decided to do that for a little bit. So during the first Gulf War back in the early 90s, I was actually over in the Middle East for a little bit. I was in the U.S. Navy as funny enough, I did charting. I was in what they call a quartermaster, which is navigation.
Mm-hmm.
And when I left the Navy, I'm actually a disabled veteran from issues back then. I don't want to talk about it, but
okay.
Anyway, so I'm still kind of service connected, they say. Anyway, I was going to be a police officer and work in the crime lab, believe it or not. So I've graduated police academy. As I mentioned, I've got my degrees in forensics, and I ended up going a completely different route because at one point I opened up a private security company, and I owned that for a while, but it was a conflict of interest. You weren't allowed to be a police officer owning that kind of a company because they didn't want you, going to a burglary site and handing out your cards.
Yeah.
So, I eventually sold the company. I needed something to do, and I figured, well, it was the late 90s. It was pretty hot to be in the markets. It was like the thing to do, so I figured I'd try it out, and I got hooked.
Talk to us about like your experience. Did you learn it first, or did you get a job in the financial markets? How did that happen?
Well, I'm pretty fortunate in that I have kind of an eidetic memory. So I studied all the books for the Series 7 exam and just took the exam. I think it only took me about an hour and a half. I went back to the brokerage and they said, wait a minute, did you miss your test today? I said, no, I'm done. They said, wait a minute, it's too soon. I can't be back already. And so I passed the test pretty easily. And honestly, it has nothing to do or not that much to do with the markets. It's more about how not to get sued and how to sell things to your customers. But that aside, I hated being a broker because, again, it was a sales job and I wanted to be more involved with the markets. So I was offered an opportunity to move into back office operations. And that's where I started getting my real education on the markets because I was handling what's called order flow. So the brokers back then, they didn't have computers to deal with. So they would get a phone order from a customer, write it down on a piece of paper called a chit. Mm-hmm. So there were blue chits for buy orders, pink chits for sell orders. And I joke, I say every day I come into my office and there's this huge pile of chit on my desk to deal with. So
yeah.
Anyway, some people take a little while to get that one.
I got that one.
I haven't got it, to be honest.
Okay. So I had this chitty job for a little while, but no. So it was basically I was handling the order flow for the brokers and getting it filled, the orders filled through the market makers. And that's where I started to see what really moves the markets, and that's what's called order flow. Later, I was offered a job at a hedge fund to be a lead trader for the fund, but I didn't really know how to trade. I knew the order flow. And so what happened was they sent me to a company called OTA to learn how to trade. I ended up trading for the hedge fund for about 8 months and then decided to quit and trade for myself. And I never looked back. But I decided to go back and kind of retake some of my classes. I was there so often that I got a part-time job as an assistant. And eventually, after trading for a few years, kind of became a full-time instructor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I left that company. I do it for a different company now, but I still teach trading part-time and I trade full-time.
Yeah. We always talk to our guests on the show about how important it is to get your education. Do you feel it's important to go down the route of having lessons from a reputable company, or do you think learning from, say, platforms like YouTube is also a viable route to go down? What would you say there?
I think that, as good as Google State and University YouTube can be, there's a lot of misinformation out there and you're not going to get the right feedback. First of all, I think everyone needs a mentor that they can work with. Whether or not it's through a big company or it's through a private mentor that you work with, you need somebody who's been there in the trenches and is going to go through or has gone through what you're going to experience, because they're going to be able to see what you're doing, whether it's right or wrong, and guide you in the right direction. When you try to trade using what you learned just online, watching a video, there's no feedback. And without that feedback, it's going to be very difficult to make adjustments to make sure you're trading in the correct manner.
Yeah. Agreed.
I totally agree with that, to be honest with you. But, I like to ask that question because you do see a lot of people going down the YouTube route. And I always say to myself, if I'm going to learn a skill, I want to know absolutely everything. So
Yeah.
like you said, speaking to the tutor and having that interaction is important. So
Well, you get what you pay for. I mean, a lot of people don't realize it and they think it's expensive for the education, but there's that saying, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance.
Yeah. And it's an investment.
An investment in yourself. You're right.
Yeah.
I tell my friends, when they always ask me, oh, can you teach me how to trade? And, I just say to them, when I tell them how much time you have to put in and they get put off, I always say to them, you're learning a skill how to make money for life. And then, only then, when that hits home, then they start, sit up and take notice. But
absolutely, you can't amortize it over, okay, well, I'm taking this class and it's going to cost me X amount of dollars for this many days. You got to really amortize it over the life of the skill that you're going to gain. And that skill could be used for the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And
exactly.
When you look at it that way, it becomes very inexpensive. And you're going to pay the tuition one way or another. Either you're going to pay it to a mentor to get quality education, or you're going to pay it to the market in losses.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to learn that way.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Absolutely.
I mean, you touched upon having a mentor. Did you have a mentor to learn how to trade?
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the advantages, with a company that's a larger company, there are more people to choose from, but that can also be a detriment too, because you sometimes have too many choices and too many different conflicting styles. So with the company I was with, I was able to find someone that really kind of meshed with me, both personality wise and trading style. And that's very important. You got to be able to communicate with your mentor and feel comfortable expressing yourself to them with both your trials and tribulations. I mean, it's a long road to become successful in the markets.
Mm-hmm.
There is no real shortcut. It's just putting in the time and effort, the seat time, we call it, and getting the right feedback to correct your errors or to support your correct things you're doing in the market.
I mean, you talked about style. What kind of style of a trader are you?
I have a mix of styles, and it's kind of interesting. I actually very big on the psychology when it comes to the markets. I have about 12 different personal accounts that I maintain for myself. Some of them are futures, some of them are options, some of them are forex, and some are crypto now. And I'll have some intraday, even as little as what we call scalping, where I'm in and out very quickly within minutes. But then I'm also looking at long-term investing at the same time. But the way I do it, again, psychology, if you ever walk into a room, you leave one room, you're like, oh, I need to go pick up X. And then you go into the other room and you forget what you came in there for.
Yeah.
It's that psychology of the doorway. So what I physically will do is if I'm leaving from day trading and becoming an investor, I will get up from the computer, log out of that account, leave the room, walk through a doorway, then later come back. Might only be a few seconds, might be a few minutes, but I'm resetting my brain now to focus on the task at hand, which is becoming an investor, not looking at day trades.
Uh-huh.
It really helps.
That's
because
good.
there are times where you're both long and short on the same security, but different time frames and different trends.
Mm.
Well, I've never looked at it like that, but that makes perfect sense.
That's a good idea.
Psychology is huge. I mean, there's
Yeah.
little things that I do. Like my monitors are raised. So when I'm looking at my computer and my screen, I actually have to look just slightly upwards because a positive, happy person, an alert person is looking up. A depressed person looks down. And most of the time, if you put your monitors too low and you're looking down at your keyboard, you start getting tired or upset, believe it or not. So there's little things that you can do that actually make your trading better.
Absolutely, yeah. If it's okay, Brandon, can we talk more about the psychology of trading? Because
absolutely, I would love to.
As you know, this is a massive part of trading. And, I specialize in trading psychology. I'm very passionate about it. But I'm really interested to know, how important do you feel the psychology of trading is?
I think it's paramount. It is more important than almost anything else. A lot of people overlook it and they start to think, well, I really want to learn what I'm seeing on the screen. But honestly, the most important part is the interface between the seat and the keyboard, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if you can have the best plan in the world, but if you can't follow it properly because you're following your emotions and not your logic, then you're never going to do well in the markets.
Yes.
So psychology, the importance of it can never be understated. It is the most important thing. I would say it's 90% of what you do when it comes to trading.
Yeah. And I would completely agree as well, 90%, because it's subconscious. What we do all day, every day is at least 90% subconscious. So there is, there's that link. But I mean, can I ask you, what did you struggle with, when you first started out? There's
a lot of little things. I would say one of the biggest problems I had was originally I was trading other people's money and then I started trading my own. And there's a huge difference psychologically between, knowing I had a paycheck steady coming in no matter what happened with the trade. so I could focus on the trade itself. To now, when you were trading for yourself and it's your own money, you're starting to think, well, man, if I lose this money, how am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to pay this? Or whatever, we're getting ready to go on a vacation. I want to see if I can make that money to pay for that vacation. So you've got to kind of remove yourself, divorce yourself from your emotions as much as possible, and be as logical as possible when it comes to the markets. That was difficult. Another thing was sticking with the winners. It's probably one of the most common themes that I see from many students who come to me, where they have very large losers at times and very small winners. And you can't be successful in trading that way. As a matter of fact, I like to show some of the trades that I do. I have this instruction group that I work with called the E-Mini Think Tank. And I show trade ideas, and then we actually explore the ideas from an educational standpoint and look at them live in the markets. On September of last year, there's a couple months that stand out. One in particular was September. I was only right a little under 13% of the time that we looked at trades. However, I was positive for the month. My return was positive by several $1,000s. And the reason why was because my average win was more than 3 times. Actually, my average win was a little under $1,700, while my average loss was a little under $400.
Yes.
So I actually had about a 4-to-1 reward to risk.
Fantastic. Yeah. And a lot of traders do struggle with that. There's so many different aspects to this: revenge trading, over trading, so many things can happen. And I guess it's the emotions taking over that cause irrational decision making with traders.
Absolutely. I agree.
Okay. So, how did you overcome these mindset challenges? Obviously, you've been trading for a very long time, but what sort of things have you done, techniques to sort of just work on discipline?
Yeah, one of the main things is I created rules that I follow when it comes to how I manage my trades, both winners and losers. I physically put in my stop losses rather than mental stops. Those don't work. Mental stops are terrible because we tend to override them. So I always put them in the computer. So it's physically, I actually have to take action to screw it up, so to speak. The other thing I'll do is I'll get away from the computer. The programs are strong enough and powerful enough that you can let the computer do most of the work for you. Therefore, your emotion, your input is not even needed. Once you've identified the opportunity, I can program everything from the trailing stop to or time stops, whatever it is I need. And the computer is not going to feel the same emotions. The nice thing that we have now that really helps, that I didn't really have when I was starting, were smaller size contracts. You now have things like minis and micros, so you can really limit your risk when you're getting involved in the markets to begin with. And the more you see your strategy works, the more confident you become in that strategy, and the easier it does become. Other times you go through a losing streak, but for the most part, if you see things are working, you're going to feel better letting it go and letting it happen.
Yeah. I mean, you've been a trader for many years. You've worked on your psychology, which is the most important part. It's, like you said, 90%, but I work with traders, and there's a couple of things actually. Number one is discipline or lack of discipline. And number two is FOMO, the fear of missing out. These seem to be two of the common sort of challenges that traders face. I mean, what would you recommend to traders, number one with discipline and then FOMO?
Well, with discipline and having a mentor that you can almost slap your wrist from time to time, not physically, but mentally, can get back to you and tell you what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong is really important. And having that ability to have somebody that you can talk to or talk you off the ledge from time to time is great. As far as the FOMO, I actually had that issue today in one of my classes. We ended up watching. There were a couple of trades that we weren't quite confident in taking, so we passed. They ended up working, which, if it works, great. We just didn't take the trade. For instance, there was a short opportunity on the Russell 2000 futures. And because the way the markets were this morning, they were a little choppy, we decided, you know what, it's just not as high quality as we'd like. We're going to stay out of the trade. And instead found a different opportunity that worked out really well on copper. And, there are always going to be other opportunities. So even though that one trade would have worked out very well, we could have made more money, so be it, that we go on. And as long as we still have capital to trade with, we can still fight again. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So it takes time getting used to understanding that, they say, if you miss a bus, wait for the next one.
Exactly. And talking about that, our last guest actually said something that kind of resonated with me even. And he said, I think it was a percentage of 90% being analysis and kind of 10% execution, if you like, of the trade. So it's almost like being paid to wait for, setups to execute and so forth. What are your views on that?
I think it's true. As the old saying goes, measure twice, cut once. When it comes to lumber, you do the same thing in trading. You're spending more time analyzing than you are executing because you want to make sure that this is not gambling, first of all. A lot of people come to me and say, wow, trading, that's gambling, that's risky. Well, it's not. First of all, when you gamble and you lose 100% of what you bet.
Yeah.
Here, we can put in stop losses and manage the risk. Secondly, we can look for high probabilities. If you were to go to a casino, the best odds you could possibly get would be in the game of blackjack, and that's about a 49% odds in your favor.
Yes.
Maybe 49.5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So the house is always going to have an edge. And here in the markets, the house does not necessarily have to have an edge. If you have a high quality strategy where you can identify with high probability where the markets are going to go, you change those odds into your favor. So again, by making sure you stay disciplined, what it really comes down to is don't trade by yourself. Either have a mentor or have a group that you can trade with. And again, that group is such an important dynamic. People always ask me, why do I bother teaching if I could just trade and not have to worry about it? The stress of, creating ideas for other people or teaching them lesson plans or creating slides. Well, first of all, I love what I do. But secondly, it makes me a better trader to be around others. Even if I'm not physically trading in front of somebody, I'm still thinking, would I take this position in front of my students? And it keeps me in line.
Yeah.
And it maintains my discipline.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's so important because trading, as you know more than anyone, is isolating, or it can be isolating. We need that one-to-one and we need that network group around us to keep things balanced and to keep us on track and to help us kind of compare and sort of ask effective questions as well. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's very important.
I suppose it also keeps you sharp as well, Brandon, right? Teaching these students, because you've got to practice what you preach.
Oh, absolutely.
Having this interaction with students and, probably keeps you sharp, keeps you, motivated to stay on top of your craft and make sure that what you're giving them is correct, right?
Absolutely. And I make errors. I do that. And the best part is when a student will call me out on it, and I'll realize what I'm doing wrong and make sure I don't do it again. So it's a very helpful situation for me to be an instructor and be around other people. Plus, I mentioned I love people in general. And it's fun to be able to travel. I mean, not so much with COVID anymore. Everything I do for the most part is online, but I still get to virtually react with people.
Yeah.
Seeing as we're talking about trades and trade setups, I mean, what does a morning look like for you, Brandon? How do you go about your morning routine? What does it entail?
Well, it depends on what I'm doing as far as, am I teaching for the day or am I not? I typically, let's say for today, for instance, and it's Wednesday, so I'm teaching and then trading. So I wake up at 7 a.m., and I would come down to my computer and spend a little bit of time with my dogs first. Very important there. 2 French bulldogs that I love.
Aww.
Before I leave the bedroom, got to kiss my wife too. But
she comes second.
Very important. No, she's first, and then the dogs. I kind of put it out of order there, but hopefully she doesn't hear this. No, she's definitely first. But no, I come down to my computer and I start scanning certain scans that I run using different software to just kind of get an idea of what I might want to trade for the day. I always have a breakfast because I believe in keeping myself physically sharp as well as mentally sharp. I need that energy. So it's kind of important. A lot of traders skip that. Even when I used to live in California, now I'm in Florida, which is East Coast time. So we're talking about 7 to 9 a.m. is my prep period. But even when I was in California and I was getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning, I would still have breakfast because it's important for me to be sharp.
Yeah.
And so I do that. And again, I really only need about an hour's worth of prep work. So some of that is looking at news just for personal reasons, not because I don't care about news for trading. For the most part, I just look at my local news in the morning and just get ready. I actually dress for work. I'm not getting in a suit and tie by any chance, but I'll put on a shirt and shorts or jeans or whatever it may be that I want to wear for the day. But, I don't just roll out of bed and just go right to the computer. I believe that you almost have to treat it like a business, that you're getting ready for work.
Yeah.
Is that like a psychological thing, do you think, as well? When you put on a shirt, you're like, right, okay, now I'm business mode.
It is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
For the most part, I'll put on some sort of collar shirt, whether it be a polo or a button up shirt. And yeah, I'm getting ready for work. And it is 100% a psychological thing because unless I'm on camera, nobody knows what I'm looking like. Nobody cares,
Yeah.
but I care. Even,
Yeah.
so, even
Yeah.
on a day I don't teach, but I do use cameras in order to teach. That way it's a little more personal. People see what I'm up to. So I teach usually from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And after that, I'll review what I did as far as my trades and maintain my records. I still record everything I do as far as either personal trades or instructional trades. Typically, if I'm teaching, then afterwards at about 11 till noon before I have lunch, I'll actually look at some swing trade opportunities for my own personal account. Because the morning is focused on the students. Sometimes I will actually trade at the same time I'm teaching. I keep a separate computer open for my personal trades next to my trading for education computer, so to speak.
Mhm.
I mean, why not, right? If I'm teaching them and I'm showing them great opportunities, I'm going to take them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you touched upon news and stuff. How would you best tell traders or new novice traders, if they're in a position and there's like a news event coming out, what would you recommend them to do? Because I've been on the end of some good trades when the news, say, for some sort of news regarding currencies have come out, but then I've also been on the back end of some bad trades. I mean, how would you approach that?
If you're relatively new in the markets and you don't know how news is going to affect you or the security you're trading, you have no business being in the market during that time. You should get out 15 minutes before the news. You can always re-enter afterwards. And if you miss out, so what? Again, another bus.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, today was Wednesday, so we had our crude oil inventory numbers coming out in the U.S., and that's an inventory number that comes out 10:30 a.m. Eastern time every single Wednesday unless there's a holiday. So we knew the news was coming out. I actually have strategies around it. And I show those to my students, how to trade the volatility that comes with that. But there's also that opportunity to just sit back and wait for about 10, 15 minutes after the news is out, let the market digest it, and then get back in. The worst case scenario, you miss out on a great opportunity. Best case scenario, you miss out on a huge loss that would have occurred.
Yeah.
So you got to know how the markets will react. Most of the time, it's a three-pronged move whenever there's news. You get a knee-jerk reaction, a correction, and then continuation. So if you know what to look for with the opportunities in trading and know how to find good supply and demand zones, then it's not usually a problem. We ended up taking the trade today. It was a small one. News broke out. Crude oil popped to the upside for about, I think it was like 15 to 20 ticks. So, $150 to $200 is not bad, but it's not huge.
Yeah. I mean, another question I wanted to ask you, obviously you're a CMT, so it'd be criminal not to get some insights on the market. I'm sure our listeners would love it as well. What's happening? What are you seeing happening with the markets or the assets that you trade?
I believe that as far as the equity markets, which is really a lot of people's concern, I think we're going to be entering into a bear market this year. I think this is it. The big crash is coming. We're in the phase that we usually get with every market crash. You get that initial move down, and then you get a false recovery where a lot of people are saying, see, it wasn't that bad. We just moved down, and then the bottom drops out. So in history, this has happened almost every single time there's been a major crash. The first dip down starts to shake people up. You get a small recovery and people start to think, it wasn't a big deal. And then the big drop hits. So if, we go back, I'm just trying to remember as I call up a chart here on the S&P weeklies, we're looking at the futures back in 2008, we did the same thing. We had, there it was, I see it. I'm trying to remember what months they were. We had an initial drop actually in July of 2007. Then we bottomed out in August, rallied up in October, made an all-time high, dropped again, did not make a new low. And then we rallied in December before the bottom dropped out. So we're kind of in that phase. And you go back to 2000 in the tech bubble, same thing happened. March of 2000, we made a peak, dropped into May of 2000, then rallied into August before everything dropped out. So we're right now in that phase where it's the false recovery that's happening. We've had the big drop from January and we are pulling back up, but we are probably not going to make a new high and we'll end up stalling out and dropping for good. I think we'll get to 20% or plus. Unfortunately, most of the big crashes have been almost 50% drawdown. And I would not be surprised to see something like that happen this time.
Okay. I mean, historically, could we have foreseen this happening? Because I tend to use MRCI for seasonal trades and stuff. Is there any sort of historical data that would suggest that, this was expected or?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you didn't have to look back historically too much. What I do is I use the indicators a little bit differently. You mentioned I'm a chartered market technician, which I'm kind of proud of. There's only 2,500 of us in the world.
Oh, wow.
Which is kind of interesting. Yeah. It's been around since 1983. And I don't know how many people take the exam now, but back when I was going for it, there was about 700 people every year testing for it.
Gosh, where did you
it's
study?
Kind of an exclusive group.
Yeah. Where did you study this CMT, Brandon?
I actually did it. They've changed it now where they made it a little bit easier. Not much, but they now have materials that you can actually study, and they even have some online courses that you can take to help you. Okay. When I did it, they just gave you a list of books to study, and that was it. You had to go out and get all the books yourself, and it sounded like one of those old guys back in my days. But yeah, I just had to self-study, and what I saw was I happen to use the RSI, Relative Strength Index, but the way I use it is not overbought, oversold as an oscillator like most people do. I bring up the CMT designation because I had to learn 745 technical indicators, and one that stuck out to me was a different way of using the RSI. I use it as a modified momentum indicator.
Oh.
So what I saw in the markets, if you were to look at a chart, the markets were rallying up and making new highs. Now, when you think about it, you should only make new highs if you have more momentum. So what was happening with the RSI was the exact opposite. On the weekly chart of the S&P, you'd see that the RSI was making less or lower highs while prices were making higher highs. We call that negative divergence. And it's basically like you're building a bridge, but the supports are not reaching the bridge. So you're losing support. Eventually, that bridge is going to collapse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was honestly the big sign that I saw to move us down. And it did not dip below a certain number. So that means we're not into the bear market yet. We still have to make one more peak. And if we peak, but we do not rise above a certain number, that'll tell me when we're actually ready to drop. So the market, it's kind of interesting. It actually warns you ahead of time, but you just have to know how to read the data properly.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, we keep going on about you being a CMT, Brandon, which is, something that we should all aspire to if we're traders. But
maybe not.
I understand that it's a lot of reading, a lot of understanding all the oscillators, like you said. But I mean, what would you say it allows you to do better than an average trader or just a normal, like someone like myself or Louise?
Well, I think
it allow you to do?
Read the material without having to get tested or become the CMT, honestly. What it does is it gave me a deeper understanding of price action and how to read it, understand it better. Unfortunately, and this is not really a knock on the organization, but a lot of what they do is still focused on traditional technical analysis. Again, you're getting a lot of the material from all the books that have been published out there. I was very fortunate to kind of look at price action from a different perspective from the institutional side. And the way I trade is kind of a hybrid. It's a lot different than what the traditional technical analysis would do. Like even the RSI I mentioned, most people are looking at it saying, well, if it goes below 30, then you look for it to buy when it crosses above, or you sell when it goes above 70 and down below. First of all, I don't use 70 and 30. I use 60-40. So it's already modified. Secondly, I'm using as a momentum indicator, which is not its intended use originally when Wells Wilder created it. So the CMT helps for me to understand. My focus primarily was on intermarket relationships, and there was a lot of study that I had to do that really helped me. I'll be honest, the reason why I got the CMT was I was appearing on CNBC and Fox Business and Bloomberg Television, and I was young, so I wanted to be taken seriously, and PhD was going to be way too much work. So I figured, hey, CMT, I think I can get this. And I put my mind to it, and I got it. So I honestly got it for no other purpose than to be taken more seriously when I spoke on television.
Yeah.
However, I found that it opened some doors for me as far as making me a better trader. Yes, because it required me to study more about price action and understanding the warning signs the markets gave me more than I would have, and how the markets work together more so than if I had not studied.
How long did it take you to do the accreditation or qualification, for the CMT?
There's 3 exams. You're allowed to take them every 6 months. So the fastest anyone can do it is 18 months. I actually took 2 years. I failed my 3rd level exam the first time around and passed it my 2nd time when I took it. So it was no problem. So I did 24 months total. I was going through a divorce, so I'll blame it on that at the time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Whether or not
feel
true.
you.
Understandable. Yeah.
I was a little distracted.
Yeah.
But, this was back in 2008 was when I took it. And like I said, it's changed quite a bit since then. But the nice thing is, if you're going to work in the industry, it gives you a lot of credibility. It also does bypass certain licensing by FINRA if you're going to be, again, an analyst for a major brokerage. And it definitely opens up some doors. People will look at you a bit differently. But as far as making you the best trader ever, I don't know. I mean, it can definitely help. Like I said, you learn a lot more concepts than you would have otherwise. But I would definitely do it again. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I'm not discourage anyone.
Yeah.
So you don't have to, take it after an X amount of years, like some other exams that, to keep on top of new
There
concepts.
are CE that you're supposed to be doing. I actually belong to kind of an older group and grandfathered in with a lot of things for qualification, I guess. But I still do some CE stuff for it too. Yeah, there's certain meetings you attend and certain readings and exams you can take. So you do have to maintain to make sure you're up and up, as well as maintain membership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing, to be honest. Before I met you, Brandon, I've never heard of CMT, and I know a lot about trading and the markets and so forth, more so about psychology, but I'd never heard about CMT. But what an amazing achievement.
Well, thank you. Again, it's more known in the technical industry. More people are familiar with the CFA, which is Chartered Financial Analyst. That's more the fundamental studies. That one obviously opens a lot of doors as well because there's still a big focus on the fundamental side. But with the CMT organization, they're trying to bring this more into some of the business schools. In the past, I think Wharton and a few others, that's the University of Pennsylvania, UMass, I'm trying to remember some of the other universities have actually had CMTs go in and teach some of the criteria to some of the business school candidates who want to get a little bit better knowledge of technical analysis, because many of the brokerages are requiring technical knowledge for employment. I know that one CMT, he's not there anymore, but David used to be one of the lead technical analysts for Fidelity. They've got this amazing think tank up in Boston with some amazing computers and technology where they do technical analysis on multiple markets.
Oh, okay. Okay. Is that just in the US, do you know, or is that kind of global?
It is a global thing. No, there's members all throughout the globe. I met a couple CMTs in India when I lived there. I lived there for a couple of years. In the UK, there's several. Some of them have their own organization, but then they also offer the CMT designation. But it is a global organization. It's headquarters in New York City, though. So It's primarily in the US, but there's people from all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Fantastic.
Brandon, we talked to a lot of the guests on the show about passion. Every person that we spoke to has this undeniable passion for trading. What drives you? Is it seeing the success of the students that you teach? Is it the money? Is it the freedom? What motivates you to trade and become better?
It's a little bit of everything. I love what I do. I come from a long line of educators, my mother, my sisters, my grandmother, all teachers. And I love when students get it. It's really awesome, actually. It's just a great feeling when a student comes back to you with the success, showing you how they were able to use what you taught them to be successful. It really is neat.
Mm.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that's one of the big motivators. I mean, it was also, obviously, I do well, and the benefits that I get from teaching help me personally in my trading as well. So it makes my income better. I like the diversification. I like the variety of, every day is always a little bit different. Even in the markets when I'm trading at home, that's definitely different when I get to travel or even teach online courses to different people. So that's been very motivating. I've been doing this for over 20 years and I'm not bored. That's the fun thing. I don't travel as much as I used to ever since COVID. But other than that, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Do you still learn, Brandon? Is there still stuff that you're learning or, pick up and think, oh, I didn't know that?
Absolutely. That's the best part of it too. I will never stop learning until I'm dead. I always try to improve myself, and not just as a trader, but as a human being. I always try to get better. So I am constantly trying to learn new things. I started getting into the world of crypto. There were new things to learn there. Even in my own personal analysis, I love when I have newer students that point something out to me from a fresh perspective, and I can actually learn from my students just as much as I teach them as well. So there are new things that I continuously learn. I meet new people and I learn from them. I'm kind of a sponge. I try to learn as much as possible. I don't think I can ever be a master at anything because there's always going to be something that I can learn. There's always somebody who's better than me, and I want to keep improving.
Yeah, I love that. I really love that. So my next question is, how do you love to learn? I mean, we've all got different ways, but do you love to learn from kind of people and, the actual experiences, or do you like to read books? What's your kind of favorite way of learning and growing?
Don't have a favorite. I definitely know that the best way that I learn, and pretty much anybody, is by hands-on doing through, repetition of the physical action of something. So I can learn a concept, but I'm really not learning it completely until I apply it multiple times in the markets. So I try to combine everything. I love to read. I've always been a big reader ever since I was a child. And I read not just trading stuff, but other stuff as well, obviously. But that's probably one of my favorites is reading. And then I'll watch some videos, not too many, but every once in a while I'll get on YouTube or I get some videos sent to me, and even interaction with some of my mentors still. I still stay in touch with them because as much as I've learned over the years, I believe that there are still things that people can teach me. Even if they may not have as much experience as I do, it doesn't matter. There are still new things, different perspectives that I've got to be open to and try to learn from everyone that I meet.
Yes, yeah. And that's one of the reasons why we're here, is to learn, to grow, to evolve, and we're always going to be learning. And I think that's such an amazing kind of attitude to have, is like, I'm just here to learn as well, and absorb things. So yeah, it's good. It's amazing.
I mean, Brandon, we always try to inspire our listeners, our growing listeners. So, I mean, listening to your story of how you've come about being a successful trader, we always try and give some inspiration, and hopefully anyone listening can take note. I mean, how has trading changed your life? It's just so, any listeners can get motivated by it.
Wow, I couldn't imagine where I'd be without it. I have a great life, honestly. I met my wife through this, believe it or not, first of all. That's probably one of the major things. My wife was working for OTA at the same time I was. I met her at one of the offices, and yeah, it's been great. We've been married for 3.5 years, been together for over 6.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's been a big change. I was able to see the world through trading because I was given a lot of opportunities I lived in India for 2 years. I lived in England for about a year, Singapore for about 8 months, the UAE, Dubai for about a year. And I never would have had those experiences had I not been teaching trading or trading. And then trading itself, I was able to have the ability to work how and when I want to and live the type of lifestyle that I choose. And that's a huge thing. That's really why people get to it.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, I want to learn to trade because I want to make money. And that's BS. You really want to be able to live the lifestyle that you choose. I mean, there's a difference between living the lifestyle that you choose and living the lifestyle you can afford. And unfortunately, that is very separate for many people. So we really want to make it the same. You want to be able to afford to live how and when you want to. Mm-hmm. Where you want to. And that's what trading allows. And, if I want to take an extra vacation, we do it. If we want to spend time with each other, we do it. If we want to spend some time away from each other, we can do whatever we want. And that is amazing. And that's not something you get from other types of careers that people can choose.
Yeah. It can give you the freedom. It gives you the freedom, doesn't it?
Exactly. It's not the money, it's the freedom.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
And on your days off, Brandon, what does that look like?
Days off is bicycling. I like going to a lot of little thrift stores. I do kayaking because we happen to live in a place called Wilton Manors. I live right on a canal.
Oh, wow.
So we can kayak in the river, and it's about 78 degrees Fahrenheit today. So probably do that this afternoon.
And the alligators?
Yeah, everybody always asks me that. I have only seen one alligator in all the years I've lived here. About 6 years I've lived in Florida. I've seen one alligator. So they're not as common as you think. Louise, didn't you live down here once before?
I did. And I'm absolutely beaming because when anybody mentions Florida or Fort Lauderdale, I lived there for 4 years, back in my prime. So we're talking quite a long time ago. But I really hold so many good memories. It's almost like that revivification. So I didn't see any alligators. I never went to Everglades. I never had an alligator burger, but I had an amazing time. It was just fantastic. And I'm slightly jealous, to be honest, Brandon.
Yeah. No, actually, I do take it back. I did see a couple of gators because I did go to the Everglades. I was very fortunate. I was able to shake hands with a gator once.
Ah.
It was a wild one, too. The boat captain had been kind of giving this gator Cheetos and kind of training it and taming it a little bit. So every time I saw him in particular, it would know that it's going to get some of these cheese puffs, not Cheetos. So
Cheese puffs.
Yeah, he would give this gator cheese puffs. So the gator came swimming up to the boat and he grabbed onto it and he let me kind of play with it and shake its hand. And it was a wild gator. And then he gave it the cheese puffs afterwards and it was fine. It was happy.
Wow.
So I wouldn't recommend trying that yourself.
I was going to say, maybe next time, if I do ever go to Florida, I'll bring some cheesy puffs with me.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Take a packet or
Gotta
two.
get lucky and find that same gator because, otherwise.
Well, I'll know. I think I'll know.
That's about the only time I've actually come into contact with a gator.
Yeah. I mean, well, if I ever do go down there and try it out, I'll know if it's the right one.
There you go. And I also like painting a lot. That's the other thing that I like to do. So I do a lot of painting. I've done murals in offices. I've also done just canvas paintings, rocks, all sorts of fun things.
Oh, okay.
Oh, cool.
Another really neat outlet. I'm kind of a creative person.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Right, before we finish up, Brandon, I've sort of held these questions back. You're an Arsenal supporter.
Oh, no.
I'm an Arsenal supporter. Before we wrap up the show, I think it's only right that we talk a little bit about Arsenal. Not too much, but what's going on? I mean, this transfer market's been crap.
Well, yes and no. I mean, we've gotten rid of a lot of deadwood, which is actually good. We've gotten some people off the salary that we didn't need. I would have liked to have seen some quality brought in, but I think in the long run, Arteta is trying to build a team long-term that he wants with the right kind of mentality. And rather than rush out and just get a quick fix, I think it's okay. I mean, it's not great to get out of the top four for this year, but I think he's sacrificing not bringing poison or temporary Band-Aids into the room, rather wait for the summer transfer period and bring in the people he really wants. So I think that might be a little bit about what he's doing. I'm hoping, at least, either that or he and Adu are just idiots. I could be wrong.
I mean, for me, they seem to promise the world and deliver nothing. And that goes for the owners as well.
I don't know. I mean, take a look at what we've done through this year. We started off at the bottom of the table, with the losses starting off and losing to Brentwood. I mean, all these terrible teams that we shouldn't lose to. And we've changed quite a bit. The makeup of the team has changed a lot. And I think that we're going to be on the right path long term. We've got a lot of youth, though, which is good and bad because we don't have a lot of the experience we really need. We need to get some leadership roles. And I mean, it's great that Laka's still there. Hopefully he sticks around to be able to teach some of the youngsters. But I mean, Tomiyasu, you've got Aaron Ramsdale. It's incredible in net. You've got Ben White coming along. You got a lot of positives. Tavares will be there eventually. You got, I don't know. I mean, Kieran Tierney is amazing.
Yeah.
But a lot of the people that he's brought in, I think, are great.
Yeah. I mean, Louise, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah. Can we talk about Chelsea now?
Well, I think we'll end the show there then. Right.
No.
Yeah, I think we'll kill that one. Don't worry, Brandon, I've got this. Louise, we'll cut it there, I think.
You've got to love the Blues.
No.
Yeah, well, actually, we added an American, too, so we got our own American. I mean, it's not Christian Pulisic, but, we got
yeah.
I can't remember his name now, the defender from Denver that we're bringing in.
Oh, yeah, the new one. The new one guy.
We got
the goalie,
two of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we got the goalie from DC United that's coming over, I think it is, and also our New England Revolution. I can't remember their names now. I don't watch MLS as much. I am a Miami fan. Inter Miami. I do go to the matches here. Beckham's team.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can go to all the games.
Your son's playing there now, right?
I don't know if he's on the first team. I think he might be on the Fort Lauderdale team, which is the minor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, listen, Brandon, we're going to wrap up the show now.
Okay.
It's been fantastic having you on.
Yeah.
It's been really good insight. And a good chat to actually speak to you and find out what it takes to be a successful trader. So thank you very much for coming on, mate.
Thank you so much for having me. I'd love to come back again.
Thank you very much, Brandon. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, thank you.
Just to finish up, if you like what we're doing, please subscribe. We've got some big news coming out, extending the team and stuff. So, stay tuned and look out for more episodes.
If you are a trader who is struggling with their psychology and you would like more information on the Trading Mindset program, then please visit www.hypnosisfortraders.co.uk. The program is changing the lives for so many traders, and you can read and watch some many success stories. You can also access a free 21-day transformational audio. This is to help gain better self-discipline as a trader. So please visit the website. Thank you.